What's going on, everybody? LK here, back at it again with another video, and today some more Dragon Ball Fighters for y'all. So when you start a fighting game, most people tell you to not jump. In games like Street Fighter, they tell you to straight up don't jump. You will die if you jump. In games like Guilty Gear, BlazBlue, and other fighting games, it can be difficulty anti-air, but you have to move pretty carefully or do things to make your opponent think that they can't anti-air you. So Dragon Ball is the opposite. Jumping is one of the most important things and one of the core ways you move around the screen. And it's such a simple thing if you think about it. Just jumping is pretty easy to do. Everybody does it at every skill level, that you wouldn't think that there were different tricks and different ways you could use jumping. So I'm using this video as a way to go back and have everyone review how to use jumping. If you like all the match analysis, guides, and everything else I've been putting out, definitely consider liking this video or subscribing to the channel if you already have not. It does help the channel grow. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. So jumping is pretty easy to do. You just tap up and you'll jump in the air. So let's start with why it is so important to jump in this game compared to other fighting games. Now, the most important thing is that anti-airs generally are not strong in this game. Everyone has one anti-air at least, and that is their down heavy. It varies by character, of course, but the main thing is that the anti-air property does not activate right away, and if it misses, there's a lot of recovery. So even in cases like here, so you can see in the frame advantage, it's minus 45. That's a long time to be punished. Similarly, even with air options, UI Goku is really vulnerable if you just do the 2H. So this is by design, right? If you don't have an assist, doing the 2H is much riskier than normal. Also, for the most part, characters don't have anti-air moves as well. So an example of this is you could use the medium version of Beyblade. So if you're really nasty, you can catch someone in the air with this move. But if you look at the invincibility, there's none. It just beats Ki Blast. It doesn't beat jump-ins. So when you're learning a fighting game, a really big realization people have after they play for a little while or after they talk to somebody who explains it is that the reason why staying on the ground is generally considered so strong is because you have access to all of your options when you're not moving on the ground. I actually remember being told this way back in my SSBM days, and I was kind of mind blown. Like, just dashing back and forth, I had access to my entire moveset, and people wouldn't really know when I would do something. Being on the ground in a fighting game is the equivalent of that. So in Dragon Ball, the equivalent is doing a single jump. When you jump, you have all your air options available to you. You can attack, you can air dash forward, you can air dash back, you can double jump. The world is open to you. Now, when you double jump, you have way less options. There are no characters who have two air dashes, so nobody can do double jump into air dash. So once you double jump, your options are way more limited. You can't move anymore. All you can do are attacks, block, super dash, and tag. Another way of looking at it is that you have all your attack options, but you can't move. So your opponent can gauge what you're going to do much better after you use your double jump. So with that in mind, let's see how we can use jump to move around the screen. So Dragon Ball 101 really is the dash jump. So here we have UI Goku blocking after, right? So using the dash jump, when you dash and jump, you get momentum you would not normally have. You carry the dash momentum when you jump so that you can travel basically full screen. Here's a normal forward jump for comparison, and then here's a dash jump. You can see too that even when combined with assists, you can cruise over certain types of attacks and punish on reaction, and if they don't do anything, you still have a double jump available or an air dash available for you to move around. Another simple motion you could use is the instant air dash, specifically instant air dash back. A lot of Dragon Ball is played at full screen, because the closer you are to the opponent, the more random the game is. There are a lot of options that you can't see. It's kind of hard to control. If you don't have something like an invincible assist or something, it could be hard to win in this range. So people really like to stay in this range if possible. Doing an instant air dash forward at this range does nothing. It just gets you close, but not close enough. But doing an air dash back keeps the screen at this distance. So you actually can't see it here, but we can see here that if I IAD back like this, instant air dash back, the screen will keep scrolling to keep up with my movement. So as opposed to dash jump, where your goal is to reach your opponent, especially if they're doing something unsafe, the goal with the instant air dash back is to keep the screen as far away, well, is to stay as far away from your opponent as possible, to stay at full screen. So why would you want this? You could use this, for example, to help you hit super dash, because you're moving the screen further away, so you have more time to react to super dash when it's coming. And you can also use it to keep the screen full screen when your opponent is trying to approach. It is pretty uncommon for someone to just run all the way under you like this when you're staying low to the ground with ID back. So next I want to talk about another common one, which is the super jump. So super jump is in most Arc System Works games, but this game has a couple of unique quirks with its super jump that doesn't exist in other Arc Sys games. Let's compare the super jump height to the jump height. So this is a normal jump and this is a super jump. So the super jump goes to around double jump height. That's just off one jump. And you can easily super jump and double jump. So the second jump is the same height as a normal second jump. It's only the initial super jump that goes higher. So the big quirk about super jump is that you can control your air momentum while you do it. So what do I mean by this? So here I'm just holding up normally. You won't see anything different, right? And I'm holding down, nothing. I'm holding right, nothing, left, nothing. But if I do super jump and hold down, you can see that Broly kind of goes to the ground faster. And similarly, if you hold up, you will float. If you hold up and back, you will drift right. You can drift here. You actually can't drift with the fast fall. If you want to drift, you have to hold a direction and then hold down. By the time you're drifting, you can't really change your momentum that much, so keep that in mind. So generally, people will move around with the float like this, or they'll fast fall like this. And of course, if you do super jump, double jump, the property stays. So what does this do and why is it so important? As a side note, another reason why people overlooked Roshi when he came out is because he actually cannot do this. He cannot float at all. So for this, we'd have to go back and review the initial jump. So when you jump, you can't change your air trajectory, right? So even though it's pretty low commit, you have a bunch of your options. Once you're moving in that way, especially if you use your second jump, you can't really do anything but either use whatever tools your characters have to alter your momentum or super dash. So the nice thing about super jumping, especially when you use both your options, is you can still do things to make it tricky for your opponent to try to engage you. If it gets to the point where your opponent thinks that the only way they can make contact with you is super dashing, then you're winning. Doing this is a risk. When you super dash at somebody like that, there's an immediate guessing game that plays out. So if you build that out in advance, you'll have a really big advantage against your opponent. So using all these air movement options and mixing them is a really important part of playing this game. If you wanted easy ways to just be like, okay, you told me all these things, I get that they're good, but I don't know how to use them, I would say get used to doing instant air dash back and keeping the screen this far, then try to add super jump float to your game. Super jump float is just like jump. If we go and circle back to the beginning of the video, when you do it once, the really big thing about this is that you go to double jump height with one jump, so you could be at this height and still kind of make it tricky for your opponent to hit you. So then, now that we've talked about all these types of jumps, we should talk about what the characters can do while they're in the air. So first, every character has super dash available, and the important thing about super dash is that it changes your momentum. So when I'm drifting like this, I can stop, it delays a little bit, and then I charge at you. Then also, characters either have something like their Ki Blast, maybe a Ki Blast special move, or maybe straight up a special move that they have in the air to kind of change how they move in the air. So using these tactics combined with your air options makes it much harder for the opponent to track you while you're moving in the air. As a starting point for these things, it's really important for when you use your main air options, aka when you use both your jumps. You can use stalling tactics after that to make your opponent guess a little bit harder, and also so that you don't have to pick super dash to fall down and get hit by 2H and die. You might also be thinking, well, all these jumping things are well and good. I know it's good. It's a pretty fundamental part to the game. What do I actually do to catch people? Of course, these all vary by character, but you could do things like use a special move to catch people in the air, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Some characters have moves that are just designed to catch jumping, like Roshi's Success. You can play a character that beats it, like Broly. If your character has an air-to-air grab, that's also an option. And truth be told too, you can super dash. You just need to make sure that you have something ready for when you do it. This being the classic. This is meant to be a pretty easy approach to the basics of neutral in Dragon Ball, because jumping is honestly the most important part of the game, and one of the things I had to do, I mean, pretty recent. Nah, I wouldn't say pretty recently, but I would say around the end of season 2, beginning of season 3, I was like, okay, you have to be cool with this game being about jumping. It is pretty different compared to other fighting games. It's kind of unique to this game, but it's just one of the things that makes Dragon Ball Dragon Ball. Everyone flies around in Dragon Ball, the show, so it makes sense that everyone jumps around in the game. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I will see you next time. Peace out.